Welcome to Thoughts on Ministry podcast with Ray Eppard, a podcast focused on helping you be more effective as you serve God. Now, here's your host, Ray Eppard.
Hello, glad you can join us. I'm Ray Eppard, and this is my Thoughts on Ministry. And right now we're looking at the three dimensions of leadership: leading yourself, leading the organization, leading cultural change, in which on all of this, there's more that we can get into than we're currently getting into. You could dive deeper into it, but we're trying to give a basis and a foundation for some of these things. Most recently, we've looked at leading the organization, and today we're going to kind of transition. It'll be a little bit of leading the organization and also leading cultural change. Now, with this, one of the biggest things that I want to do is to identify the difference between those two, between leading the organization and leading cultural change. We're talking about cultural change within the organization. And now, what's the difference between those two? Because both of them have to do with the organization. If you would, when we're saying leading the organization, we're talking more about the function, the direction, how it operates, priorities, resources, all of those much more tangible aspects. On the flip side is leading the cultural change. That has to do with behaviors and attitudes. If you would, those are the things that are less tangible. You know, the leading the organization could come down to when reports are given in, what's turned in on the reports, what does it deal with, how certain things are handled, how certain things are processed. Whereas leading the cultural change has to do with how the people are behaving in that. See, one of the biggest aspects you could deal with there is the piece of teamwork. Now, they might be doing the reports, they might be following the direction that's been provided, but yet their behavior in doing that isn't really the behavior of a team. It's not conducive to the sum of the parts being greater than the whole, if you would. That at that point, it's really minimizing the productiveness. It's limiting it, rather than people going above and beyond. Well, it's just exactly what's required and nothing else. The one is an organizational piece, as far as how the organization functions, operates, what's required. The other is the behaviors and the attitudes. It's a attitude. This is, I'm not going to do more than I absolutely have to, which translates into certain behaviors of, well, then I've done this, that's all they told me to do, I'm going to stop and stand here now. I'm not going to do anything else till somebody else tells me what to do. And that attitude ends up becoming a behavior, but at the same time, they haven't done anything contrary to company direction and policy per se. But the attitude and the behavior, the demeanor, isn't actually facilitating what you're trying to accomplish. You know, let's take, like in a church, one of the biggest struggles sometimes in church is to get people to take ownership of things. And part of that is because the importance of working for God has been so stressed that a lot of people don't want to make a mistake in serving God. So they end up not doing anything because they don't want to make a mistake, because it's the importance has been so stressed. The bottom line is we actually have to kind of change that attitude a little bit. Hey, listen, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, but let's make them going toward God. Let's make them endeavoring to serve God. Let's make those mistakes trying to build the kingdom of God. Let's not make the mistake sitting still. Let's not make the mistake by doing nothing. And so those are some attitudes, and it ends up changing so much about the organization. but it's more of a cultural change than it is the direction and the practices, so forth and so on with that. Those are more tasks. This is behaviors and attitudes. And in all honesty, this cultural change is probably when it is, let me put it this way. I'm going to change the way I was going to say it. But the cultural aspect is actually of greater significance than the organizational piece. The culture, even if you have a vision to accomplish something and you've got the organization working on that and they are fulfilling it, the culture can undermine it, even though everybody is going in the same direction. Culture can end up killing it if it's not what it needs to be. There has to be cultural change most frequently, because usually things degrade. They don't continue to move forward. And you have to lead the cultural change. Well, again, I'm Ray Eppert, and these are my thoughts on ministry.
You've been listening to Thoughts on Ministry with Ray Eppert. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.